dear friends. How are you doing? Welcome to the session. In this class, we are going to have the orientation of the reading comprehension section. And now, since we know how CLAT appears, how ALET appears, reading comprehension is the most important type of questions that we are going to encounter. So let's see what are the little details. What are we going to do in the class? Let me tell you about this. What are the blunders we should not do? What are the right things we should do? And of course, we'll be solving one previous year passage in this particular session. So let's get started. My name is Juhi Narula. So let's begin with today's session. So what are we going to cover today? We are going to understand that what are the key essentials that drive this game of reading comprehension. What are the mistakes that we should not make? What are the different types of questions that we encounter? What is expected from the correct answer? Previous year questions, right? What are the blunders that we make? Also, we are going to see what are the things we must do. So it's going to be really exciting. And we are going to solve one previous year passage, as I did tell you. So the first important thing is that if you have to begin the journey of reading comprehension, you have to start reading, right? Please start reading from this particular day. Don't wait for tomorrow. Don't say, okay, from next week I'll start reading. Please start reading, my dear friends. Reading has a lot of benefits. It makes you wiser. Of course, if you talk about comprehension, definitely you get an edge. You start understanding the tones, you start understanding the various patterns, you start understanding the thought processes, you get more refined, you get better concept clarity, you start reading in between the lines. So of course, the first important thing to get better in reading comprehension is that you start reading. And don't limit yourself. Don't create mental barriers here. Barriers are only here, right? So try to, be open-minded. And at this particular age, we should be ready and eager to experiment with all type of genres, right? So identify what are your weak areas, identify what are your strengths, identify the topics that are not boring for you but that don't excite you much, right? And start reading the passages or the articles which you find intimidating, so that you start developing some sort of friendliness with the passages. ऐसा होता है ना कि बायोलॉजी का पैसेज तो नहीं पढ़ना और एग्जाम के दिन क्या होगा, पहला पैसेज बायोलॉजी का आ जाएगा. ऐसा होता है. आई एम टेलिंग यू दिस, राइट? So it is very, very important that our fear goes away, right? So what is the best way that you read? Of course, reading newspapers are definitely suggested because that helps you with the other sections of the exam also. And I would always recommend to read the editorials, because then you get a lot of flavors, right? You get a lot of topics on which you can read, right? It is just that, I want to eat South Indian and I can't go to the restaurant and order 4-5 South Indian dishes, right? Or maybe by looking at me, you can say, ma'am, aap to kha sakte hoge 4-5 dishes. But no. So what will I do? The wise thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to order a platter, right? So that's what precisely editorials do. They offer you a good range of articles and you can read from various topics and you can understand those particular topics, develop a strong grip, and that's where you lay foundation to crack the comprehensions that you encounter in the exam, right? So that's the first step. Read as much as you can. And second is you need to know the words, right? So you would not want that the words look like these to you. That means unfriendly, you're not aware, you don't know what the word means. That sort of somehow brings a sense of a fear. It intimidates you. You feel less confident, right? The moment you encounter 3-4 words in the passage that are new to you and you do not know the meaning, so you start developing bad taste regarding that particular passage. You feel less friendly, you will feel less confident, and that we would not want, right? So when we say everything is interrelated, vocabulary building is helping you with reading comprehension, reading is helping you build vocabulary, right? So start reading, right? Start learning new words, so that you become more comfortable when you encounter those words. And there's a secret. that the moment you start learning new words, you'll start finding those words around you. Try this, and when we'll meet next time, I'll ask you this, that are you experiencing this, right? So just start with it. First important thing is to gather that courage, take a deep breath, make a strong determination, and start doing it, right? Just don't think too much. I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it day after tomorrow, I'll do it after the weekend. When it is the right time, now start doing it, right? So of course, vocabulary building definitely helps you perform better with comprehensions as well, right? Now when we are reading, it should not be we are just reading. Please understand, when we talk about reading comprehension, there are two terms: you are reading and you are comprehending. So comprehension में understanding के बिना अगर आप read कर रहे हैं, you can't solve the passage. So comprehension is very, very important. How clearly are you identifying that what is the objective of writing, what is the purpose of writing, what is the mindset of the author while he is creating that particular passage or argument? What is he thinking, what is trying to justify, how is he trying to justify, right? What is the claim that is making, what is the conclusion he is trying to reach at, right? So it is just not the superficial reading. You have read 10 lines, and then once you finish the passage and you don't know what the discussion was all about, you have wasted your time. That is futile, right? Until and unless we are able to explain somebody at least the essence of the discussion. I do understand that the nitty-gritties, the small little details, you can't in one go, you can't explain to the other person. For that you have to read multiple times, but at least you know what's happening in the passage. That much of clarity should be there. Otherwise you'll not be able to solve the questions which are based on the overall understanding of the text, right? So it's very, very important to have an objective while you are reading. Just don't when we say ask the students to read, they would just finish reading and then they'll say, ma'am, we have been reading since last 10 days but we can't see anything significant as an outcome. Are you understanding the gist of the discussion? Are you focusing on learning new words? Are you creating a summary after reading that particular passage? Are you discussing that particular paragraph or passage or article that you have read with your friend, right? So do these exercises to make reading more meaningful, right? So whatever activity we do, we would want to have maximum output, right? So if you're reading, we would want to have maximum output, maximum outcome, right? We are enhancing our general awareness, we are overcoming a fear of certain topics, we are building vocabulary, we understand that what was the main idea, primary purpose of writing the discussion, then it is worth it. Otherwise it is just throwing your 3-4 minutes or 10 minutes or 15 minutes or whatever amount of time you are dedicating, right? So it's very, very important to understand that comprehension is very, very important. Now there are students who would, I don't know how, but they make these blunders. If you are doing these mistakes, please stop them right away at this particular moment, right? So there are some students who would just read the first and the last paragraph. Boss, you are writing a paper to enter NLUs or top-notch universities, colleges of the country. Do you think this tactic works? It never does, right? So please don't think like this, that I just read the first paragraph and the last paragraph and I'll be sorted. You will not be, right? So not is in capital letters, right? You will not be sorted. Please don't make this mistake. You're reading too fast because you're under the pressure कि मुझे तो फटाफट passage करना है, सारे questions complete करने हैं, मेरा paper छूट जाता है. जब आप when you're doing this, when you're reading too quickly, so what happens is that you lose the comprehension, you lose the momentum, you are not understanding what is happening. That is futile, right? You are wasting time. Questions पे एक बार आप आओगे, आपको वापस passage पूरा पढ़ना पड़ेगा, तो वो आपने additional 1.5 minute अगर पहली रीडिंग में इन्वेस्ट कर दिया होता, तो you would have got a better grip and understanding of the comprehension. So don't make this mistake. You have to read with understanding, right? So it again doesn't I'm not trying to say that you go very, very slow, enjoy the process. That's what you are not supposed to do, but try to read at a pace where you're absorbing the detail, right? Now just skimming the details, that never works, right? Again, since you can see that the competitive exams are focusing very hard on reading comprehensions, right? They really want to test the ability to absorb the information, process the information, come up with the right answers, read in between the lines, identify how the author is conveying the information. So if you really think that skimming is going to help, no, it is not going to. So don't just superficially read, you have to dive down. At one point of time you have to embrace the passage, right? So at times, students are in a rush, passage छोड़ो, मुझे तो question solve करने. अरे बाबा, questions can only be solved once you are clear with the passage, my dear student. If you are not clear with what the passage is trying to convey, how are you going to answer the questions, right? So there is a lot of anxiety that students would really want to go to the questions. And a lot of times students ask me this question that ma'am, हम पहले questions पढ़ लें और उसके बाद हम passage पढ़ लें, या हम passage पढ़ के ही questions पढ़े. तो देखिए, there will be some questions that are based on the overall understanding of the text. So you have to read the entire passage and then you will be more empowered to solve the question. So don't take shortcuts, right? You have to follow the right way to reach to the right answers, right? So please don't make these mistakes. A lot of students do these mistakes and then they regret later, because at times skimming will not help. Without understanding the passage, you're jumping to the questions, not going to help, rather it's going to consume more time. So be very careful that what you are doing and what the habits you are building, right? So at times, if you are preparing in some particular way and you're expecting that you are going to leave that particular way and follow entirely a new approach in the exam, that's not going to happen, right? So you have to incorporate only those practices and approaches which are doable, which you can apply, which you can implement in question solving. If you can't do this, then you will find yourself struggling in the papers, right? So we don't want that struggle to happen, and we don't want to wait for 10 days before the exam to identify that, oh my god, I'm making such mistakes. That is the reason we are starting early. So please ensure that you do not make any habit which is not consistent, not helping you in the real paper, right? So let's proceed then and see that what are the common mistakes students do. So casual reading without grasping the meaning. So I've put adequate emphasis on this, that you can't be too relaxed in your attitude. Do some scratch paper work. How do you do it? I will be explaining it to you. But understand that there are two things. One is that you do note making. So note making, say for instance, I am in my history class and I'm writing all the details, all the pointers which my teacher is explaining, because I have to use these details to pass my exam. I need to use this information later, right? So that's what I'm not going to do. Just imagine, I'm just think of the last time you did a reading comprehension, or even in the real exam, when we will solve the comprehension, the moment you will step outside the examination hall, forget about the details, you would not even remember the name of the topics, right? So we are not needing this information for future use. That is the reason note making is something which we are not doing. But I strongly recommend to do some scratch paper work which we call mapping. So I'll give you more overview for mapping in the upcoming sessions. But mapping क्या होता है, इंडिया का मैप देखा, ओवरव्यू दे देता है. सिर्फ इतना सा स्क्रैच पेपर वर्क करिए कि आपको ओवरव्यू ऑफ द पैसेज मिल जाए. तो हम क्या करते हैं, मैप से उस लोकेशन तक पहुंच जाते हैं, राइट? सो सिमिलरली विद द हेल्प ऑफ मैप वील गो बैक टू द पैसेज फ्रॉम वेयर वी कैन फेच द आंसर्स, राइट, फॉर स्पेसिफिक क्वेश्चंस. So please be very clear that don't do casual reading, do mapping, do some scratch paper work, right? That keeps you more involved, right? आपने ये क्वांट में कर रहा है और आप देखते हो कि जब आप क्वांट में करते हो, डीआई में करते हो, मैथ्स के क्वेश्चंस में करते हो, तो आपकी एक्यूरेसी, आपका फोकस मैनी फोल्ड होता है. जबकि आप वर्बल में करते हो सब कुछ ओरली, तो आपको इंटिमिडेटिंग लगने लग जाता है, आप इंफॉर्मेशन मिस आउट कर जाते हो, राइट? You find the section more challenging because you are just trying to do everything in the air. Don't do that. Bring it to the notebook, simplify the process. Again, I'm telling you, if you do note making, that will consume a lot of time. That I'm not saying to do. I'm saying just do some scratch paper work so that you are more involved in the discussion. How I'm going to teach you, right? So don't miss the underlying essence. You should understand the what and why and how of the passage, right? So I'll just write it. What is the author talking about? Why has he written the entire passage? How is he communicating the idea? And how he has placed his paragraph. So what is the sequence or structure of discussion, right? That sort of clarity you should have. You should understand what is the essence, what is the discussion all about, what is the objective, what is the claim the author is trying to make, right? What is the claim or the conclusion, how he is supporting his conclusion, how he is building the argument, how he is creating the passage, right? So actually what happens is, at times we don't ponder, we don't think, we just read. But when we are practicing, of course in the exam you will not have time, but while you are reading newspapers, you're practicing passages, you can stop for 10-15 seconds and absorb what is the content that you read. Are you understanding it? Are you getting it in the right way? So that's very, very important. And please see how the paragraphs are interlinked with each other. So don't read in chunks. One passage I've read, one paragraph I've read, second paragraph I've read, third I've read. See how, what is the common thread that's connecting all three to form one particular passage, right? One particular comprehension. So it's very, very important to connect the ideas, to connect the dots, to create the overall picture by reading all the sentences given in the passage, right? This is again a problem. We start reading, say this is the paragraph and we have started reading. So you have read one sentence, second पढ़ा, अब यहाँ पर एक sentence lengthy आ गया, which we call a speed breaker sentence, and since you did not understand in the first go and you keep on rereading it every time, right, again and again, again and again, and that kills so much of your time छोड़िए, जो pressure mount हो जाता है और उसका जो adverse impact आता है आपकी upcoming question solving process पे, वो ज़्यादा खतरनाक है. So it's very, very important to break these habits, break these patterns which bring us down. How? Of course I'm going to tell you, right? Next is, let's understand that what are the questions that we are going to encounter. So you get the main idea questions. Main idea is, what is the author talking about? Primary purpose, why is he talking about? Structure, matlab how he has written the paragraph. Tone, how. Inference, matlab क्या आप logically deduce कर सकते हो, what can be logically drawn from the text, right? Retrieval is, you also call them fetch questions. fetch का मतलब आपने information को extract कर लिया और use किया question solving के लिए. फिर आपके पास vocabulary in context questions आते हैं, और of course figure of speech के भी questions you will be seeing very frequently in the exam. So since again it's an orientation session to reading comprehension, we'll be covering all these categories in the upcoming sessions exclusively, where we'll be talking about each of the categories, where we are going to identify that in a question stem, what is the subject, what is the question type, right? What are the task words that help you understand the objective or the requirement of the question. So say for instance, if I write the question, the main function of the passage is, say for instance you get this question, right? So you could see that after reading this main function, which is the task word, you came to know that okay, the purpose of the question is asked and the topic is based on the entire passage. So the passage becomes the subject or point of discussion, right? So are we understanding the question clearly? Are we getting the required clarity? Are we understanding the task assigned to us? Because see, like I always say, question is a bridge. It is the bridge between the paragraph and the answer choices. तो आप जितना कम फोकस क्वेश्चन पे करोगे, उतनी आपको डिफिकल्टी आंसर सॉल्विंग पे आएगी. आपको वो डिफिकल्टी आती है ना, स्टूडेंट्स यूजुअली कंप्लेन दैट वी गेट कंफ्यूज बिटवीन द टू आंसर चॉइसेस. दैट मोस्ट ऑफ द टाइम्स हैपेंस बिकॉज you are not clear with what the question is asking. So of course we will have one particular session where we in detail are going to talk about the types of questions, right? Very, very important, very crucial. We need to understand that questions play a very important role, right? So what is the objective of an inference question? What are the figures of speech that we need to know? how do you get the meaning of the word in the given context. स्टूडेंट्स क्या करते हैं, वोकैबलरी इन कॉन्टेक्स्ट को वो कैसा क्वेश्चन मान लेते हैं, वो इनको वोकैब का क्वेश्चन मान लेते हैं. जैसे एक बहुत सिंपल सा एग्जांपल मैं अगर आपके लिए लूँ, बिल्कुल सिंपल सा एग्जांपल, एंड द कॉमन मिस्टेक स्टूडेंट्स डू, आई एम नॉट पुटिंग अ वेरी फैंसी वर्ड हियर. Say the question comes, what does the word rest means in line 32? Suppose you get this question, the moment you see rest and you say, oh my god, इतना simple meaning, मुझे तो सब आता है, मैं तो इतना amazingly intelligent हूँ. रेस्ट का मतलब रिमेनिंग है. आपने फटाफट ये आंसर चॉइस मार्क किया and you want to move to the next question. Maybe for a friend of yours रेस्ट का मतलब रिलैक्सिंग था, उसको बी इमीडिएटली क्लिक किया, उसने बी मार्क कर दिया. राइट, अब ये तो दोनों भी हो सकते हैं. राइट, रेस्ट का मतलब रिमेनिंग भी हो सकता है, रेस्ट का मतलब रिलैक्सिंग भी हो सकता है. बट आपकी एक फ्रेंड थी, वो बहुत ही इंटेलिजेंट थी, क्योंकि उसने जूही मैम की एडवाइस मानी थी, एंड शी वेंट बैक टू द स्टेटमेंट, एंड द स्टेटमेंट वाज दैट द इन्वेंशन of the scientist was resting on his years of research. So इसमें रिसर्च में अगर आप देखोगे तो यहाँ रेस्टिंग का मतलब डिपेंडिंग है. राइट, तो उसने देखा कि भाई वोकैबुलरी नहीं है, वोकैबुलरी इन द गिवन कॉन्टेक्स्ट है. राइट, so then this girl will correctly mark the answer as depending. अब आपको लगता है इतने सिंपल क्वेश्चंस होते हैं वर्बल में, फिर भी गलत हो जाते हैं, बिकॉज वी डू नॉट अप्रोच द क्वेश्चन इन द राइट वे. राइट, और देयर कैन बी अनदर सिचुएशन कि एक बहुत डिफिकल्ट वर्ड आ गया. डिफिकल्ट तो कोई वर्ड इंग्लिश में होता नहीं है. इफ यू नो द वर्ड इज ईजी, इफ यू डू नॉट नो द वर्ड इज डिफिकल्ट. राइट, बट यू गेट अ वेरी फैंसी वर्ड विच यू हैव नॉट heard very often and you know the meaning, so you'll be taking a lot of pride in answering the question. Right, so please of course enjoy that particular moment, but it is always important, even if you know the word, go back. You do not know the word, go back, hide that particular word, make it a fill in the blank question, predict the word and match it with the closest answer choice that's available to you. Right, it's very very important for us to understand the question, understand the right approach to deal with the question, and that we are going to do in our upcoming sessions. Since it's an orientation session, I'm just informing you that what are the areas you need to focus on while we do reading comprehensions. Right, so let's proceed further and see what else are we discussing. So when it comes to marking the right answer, one important advice: never take a final call till you explore all the answer choices. Right, always, right. Then extreme answers you avoid. Right, any particular answer choice which is politically not correct, or that's targeting some some tribe, some community, some gender, or is too sensitive, usually cannot be the right answers. Right, and always be careful. I'm saying suspicious, be careful. I'm not saying outrightly reject, but always be careful when you encounter words like all, always, none, only, must, never. Right, so the point that I'm trying to make here is that who's the boss of the entire passage? Always the author. Question anybody can create. I can create, you can create, your friend can create, other teacher can create, but who's taking the control of the passage? Always will be the author. So any answer choice which presents a claim that is stronger than the claim made by the author cannot function as the right answer. So usually extreme answers are incorrect, usually, but I'm not saying always. Right, so we are going to discuss a lot of elimination tools in the upcoming sessions, at what are the possible grounds. Like I've given you one ground, that you avoid extreme answers, just to tell you that what are the little details that you should focus on. Otherwise students को लगता है कि reading comprehension में क्या है भाई, जाओ paragraph solve करके आ जाओ. See, if you know the strategies, you will be able to do it in the effective way. Right, you will be able to do it quickly with better accuracy, and that's what we would want. We would not want that we keep on struggling, and we solve a lot of paragraphs, and we still, you are not getting the right momentum, doing it in the incorrect way, right? So we would want that our foundation is very, very strong. We have, so whenever we go for a battle, we'll ensure that we have all the arms and ammunitions and the weapons with us, right? So that's what the art is, right? And that's where the sessions help us, right? And of course we will be extensively focusing about on process of elimination tools, right? So that's what we are going to do. Okay, so that's what we are planning to cover in the upcoming sessions. And of course what you should do is you should develop fluency in reading. Start reading. I know I'm sounding repetitive, it'll say आप तो मैम मम्मी की तरह बात करो, एक बार को 10 बार बोल रहे हो, but it is very, very important, right? And I'll keep on telling you this, that read more as much as you can, whatever you can, whenever you can, right? And you will see the change happening. Yes, it will happen. For some it might take 5 days, for some it might take 10 days, for some it may take 20 days, but be patient. It's your journey, right? You're competing against yourself to get better, right? And the moment you'll understand, you want to improve from your previous test, you want to get better from your previous class, you will see the difference, right? You will see the clarity in your approach, right? So embrace the passage, wholeheartedly understand that what is the essence of discussions. I always say partial clarity, will always put you in an awkward situation, right? It puts you in a fix. It brings a lot of confusion. It brings difficulty in question solving. You might get confused between two answer choices. So it's very, very difficult to, then reach to the right answer. Then of course, in the beginning, if you are new to reading and find it difficult, then my suggestion would be create summary, right? You've read an article, create a small summary, paraphrase it in your own language. Maybe you can have a group of friends where everybody decides the article which he or she is going to read, and then once in a while you sit together, discuss, exchange ideas, so that you get better clarity, right? So you can definitely do that. Of course, actively work on vocabulary building. Vocabulary can be enhanced by reading, by listening to podcasts, or even if you're watching a movie, and even if you're having subtitles, you will see the improvement happening, right? So that can be a way. So, and also by speaking, if you have learned some ways and if you quickly use those words in our day-to-day discussions, then you will see the difference. You will see that you are retaining the word better. For example, the word family is easy for us. Why? Because we have been using it very frequently, right? But why the word ecstasy is difficult? Because we rarely use it. Maybe some of you might be knowing the words, but we are not using in our day-to-day discussions. And the moment we start using the word in our day-to-day discussions, the word becomes easy, right? So like I always tell my students कि English में कोई भी word आसान या difficult नहीं है. आपको आता है तो वो वर्ड आपके लिए इजी है, मुझे नहीं आता मेरे लिए डिफिकल्ट है, एंड वाइस वर्सा इट कैन ऑल्सो हैपन, राइट? सो एक्सटेंसिवली वर्क ऑन वोकैबुलरी बिल्डिंग. रूट वर्ड्स इज अ वेरी interesting approach to work. Also there can be, in this class maybe I can give you this strategy, that create flashcards. आज आपने आफ्टर वॉचिंग द वीडियो मुझे एक प्रॉमिस करना है कि मैम हमने एक आर्टिकल पढ़ा और उस आर्टिकल में आपको आइडेंटिफाई करने हैं 5 वर्ड्स, जस्ट 5 वर्ड्स जो आपके लिए नए थे. एंड व्हाट यू आर गोइंग टू डू, यू आर गोइंग टू डाउनलोड द ऐप, any you can have a dictionary or any dictionary app, or you can google the meaning of the word. और आप क्या करोगे, those 5 words that you have taken after reading, you will write those words, you will write the meaning of those particular words, and for each word आप क्या लिखोगे, 2 synonyms और 2 antonyms. वो synonyms और antonyms लिखना जो आपके लिए नए हो, right? So how many words do you have now? Simple maths है कि भाई मैम ऐसे तो हमारे पास 25 वर्ड्स हो गए, राइट? अब आप क्या करोगे, टेक अ गुड क्वालिटी पीस ऑफ पेपर जिसपे ये वर्ड्स लिस्ट डाउन करोगे. दैट शुड बी अ स्मॉल कार्ड, एंड टेक गुड क्वालिटी पीस ऑफ पेपर so that the sheet doesn't crumble. So, and when you flip the card, the other side of it, use the main word in a sentence, right? So for example, आपने word ecstasy लिया, या आपने word redundancy लिया, या annihilation लिया, right? या probity लिया या juxtaposition लिया, any word that you take, you write the meaning of the word front part, two synonyms, two antonyms on the other side of it, use the word in a sentence, so you'll have more acceptance for that particular word, you'll be able to retain it better. और आप क्या करोगे for another 2-3 days, आप you'll keep that card in your wallet or in your bag, right? Don't make write it on a big page, that's very difficult to carry. Take a small flash card. The idea is to have a small piece of paper so that it is very easy to carry, right? Put it in your pocket, or put it in your wallet, or put it in your bag, and whenever you get time, you keep on looking at that particular card, right? In the morning you get up, you're waiting for your school bus to come, just take a glance, right? Okay, so you have finished your lunch and you're waiting for the teacher to come or the lunch break to get over, just take a look at the word. Don't I understand that you have tuitions, you have your school classes, there's so much going on, right? So extracting a lot of time just for vocabulary building might be difficult, but if you keep on looking at this particular card just for 3 days, maximum 3 days, you are never going to forget these words, right? It's a tried and tested technique and it works wonders, right? So that's one way to begin vocabulary. Root words, I did initiate the discussion in our first video where we were having the orientation of the English section. So we'll be discussing more of root words in our sessions, and I'll ensure that I really help you with vocabulary building. But you also start doing some efforts from your own side, because then you'll feel motivated. You'll know that you'll see the improvements happening. And एक और अमेजिंग बात होगी, जब आप ये वर्ड्स सीखोगे ना, आपको ये वर्ड्स दिखने लग जाएंगे. मे बी किसी आर्टिकल में दिख जाएगा, क्लास में कभी टीचर यूज कर देगी, कोई फ्रेंड यूज कर देगा, कोई इंस्टाग्राम के पोस्ट में वो वर्ड दिख जाएगा, बट इट इज गोइंग टू हैपन. You mark my word, you're going to start seeing these words, and that's how magic happens, right? So please try this, and once you try this strategy, you can write into the comment section that what were the words that you learned. I'll be very eager to know, right? So read online. So at times when we advise our students to read, they start reading, but they read it on they read the paper or they read the hard copy. Of course, I am also old school and I love reading the book when I'm I'm on the bed and I'm enjoying my cup of coffee. That has its own charm. But when we are preparing for the exam, we would rather focus and try to read more of the content online, because that's how we are acclimatizing ourselves for our actual paper, right? Since the exam is going to happen online, reading offline doesn't really help, right? So as much as possible, read online, because students find it difficult when they make this transition from switching to books to the online part. So please ensure that you are focusing more to practice and to read online, right? Like I said, don't create mental barriers कि मेरा तो बैकग्राउंड ही नहीं है फाइनेंस का, तो मैं तो बिल्कुल मुझे समझ ही नहीं आते, मुझे तो बायोलॉजी के पैसेजेस होते ही नहीं है, मुझे तो फिलोसफी बिल्कुल आर पार हो जाती है, आई एम एब्सोल्युटली क्लूलेस. अब एग्जाम में आएगा तो आप छोड़ आओगे क्या? और अगर छोड़ रहे हो तो फिर हम इतनी जल्दी प्रिपेयर क्यों कर रहे हैं? हम इसलिए तो कर रहे हैं ताकि हम सारी शॉर्टकमिंग्स को ओवरकम कर सके. सो इट्स वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट टू ओवरकम दोज लिमिटेशंस दैट यू हैव सेट फॉर आवर ओन सेल्व्स. डोंट डू दैट, राइट? इट्स वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट दैट you read a lot of lot of variety, right? You read various type of topics, so that you are aware, in general friendliness develops, in general awareness develops. So at times it might happen that since you have some background of the topic, you'll find if it comes in the in the examination, in the paper, you'll find you are ready to read it, right? You'll be more equipped, you'll be more brave, you'll be in a better state, you'll be more comfortable. So that is the reason I'll say that don't create any mental barriers that I can't read this particular type of category, I can't read these questions, I really do not enjoy, this is very boring. Please overcome this. Now you're grown up people, you are about to make the transition, so don't make this happen to you, right? And of course, please understand there is no substitute to practice, right? As many passages you're going to practice, as many questions you're going to solve, you're going to feel more powerful, you are going to feel more confident. And of course, whenever you practice, please ensure that you're doing a strong analysis, right? Without analysis, if you are doing the practice, that will never serve the purpose, right? So now what are we going to do? We are going to take some more suggestions here, that we should start reading more carefully, We should be an active reader, pay attention to words like yet, nonetheless, in spite, despite, furthermore, moreover. You know that the author is, whenever you see thus, you know the author is trying to make a conclusion. Nonetheless, he's trying to take the discussion in the opposite direction, right? So these are called structural signposts or transition words. Really help, right? Overcome this habit of reading the same sentence again and again. It never contributes, right? So now what are we going to do? We are going to solve a previous year passage, CLAT 2022, and let's see what type of questions we encounter here. So let's begin the process, right? So as a 6-year-old beggar, Saru, so we are talking about Saru, we'll do some scratch paper work, right? It keeps us more involved. Slept off in a stationary train in Khandava, Madhya Pradesh. So you can write it is location of Khandava in Madhya Pradesh. However, so pay attention to transitions. When he woke up, he found himself in an empty compartment of a train thundering towards Kolkata, where he spent a couple of weeks in a state of panic and hopelessness. Okay, so story about a boy Saru. अगर आपको कहीं भी एक बहुत लंबा सेंटेंस मिलता है, so you can break that sentence in smaller parts rather than absorbing everything in one go, right? So जितना आप प्रॉब्लम को पार्ट्स में ब्रेक करोगे उतना ईजी हो जाएगा आपके लिए पूरा प्रोसेस, right? Finally, so what happens eventually, now you can see we are trying to, again an important transition word. He ended up in a local government adoption center from here where he was adopted by an Australian couple. So it's a story that he was abandoned. अब देखिए ये जहाँ पे भी story telling होती है, you feel more interested. So कई बार passages इतने easy to read आ जाते हैं because you get excited to know that what is going to happen. So the point that I'm trying to make, and the point is that every time we do some previous year questions, is to make you realize that you can get questions which are very easy. You can get the passages which are smooth. So don't always be in a mental state that you're going to get something very difficult. Of course, be prepared for the worst, but there can be very easy passages which you can encounter in the exam, right? So 25 years later, what happens is Saru felt the urge matlab a strong desire, to trace his biological mother and see in what state she lived. Relentlessly matlab without giving up, continuous efforts, right? He used Google satellite feature to map the part of the country that could have possibly been his hometown. The search was a long and arduous matlab very difficult, and nevertheless the perseverance did pay. One eventful day, he met his mother. Thereafter, he continued to keep in touch with her. So there is nothing much to note here. So you can say that it is a story of a boy Saru and how he used, how he was, abandoned and then he was adopted by a couple, and later how he used technology or Google satellites to find his mother, right? Now let's see what is the passage having in it further. If technology can unite people with their loved ones, it can also make them distant. So यहाँ पर previous paragraphs you can see how the transition is happening, how the author is switching from one paragraph to other. So the previous passages said that technology helps Saru reunite with his mother, and now there is a other aspect to it, that it can also make them distant. So let's see the unlimited variety of applications or apps available to toddlers. Toddlers are kids who are 1.5, 2 years to 5 years of age. Available to toddlers, teenagers and adults might have revolutionized their lives for the better. But pay attention to transition. But these very apps have snatched away the joy of long nature walks. They have encroached upon the time and space that people earlier used for physical interaction. They have drilled deep chasm of loneliness in their lives of countless number of people. So what are the difficulties the apps have created? तो आप difficulties लिख दो कि what are the challenges or what are the problems that are now surfacing, or what are the things that people have stopped doing because they've started using the apps, right? Simple pleasures of life include visiting friends and relatives, playing matches. तो author यहीं पे idea को build कर रहा है. So what has been lost, that's the author talking about. Interacting with people in markets, public libraries and clubs. However, with escalating range of using apps like those for social media, playing virtual games and home delivery services, these joyous, happy moments are fading into oblivion and the pall of loneliness is getting heavier by day. So we are missing on the simple pleasures, right? And if you're doing so, it's time to ponder. टीचर हूँ, ज्ञान देना होता है, पर ये आप एक बार सोचिएगा that are you missing on these great joys which life has to offer? चलो, so where are we heading to? Are we going to allow ourselves to be swarmed by apps? Are we going to allow social media to engulf us in a delge of loneliness and isolation? Are we going to drive ourselves to situations that will ultimately demand mental and physical therapies to regain normalcy? Do we not know that physical interaction is as essential for mental health as food and water is for physical health? So the author is questioning that, are we going to give up to such apps and using technology so much, or are we going to be responsible? So earlier social isolation was mostly experienced by some of the elderly people who were devoid मतलब जिनकी लाइफ में था नहीं, कमी थी, of an occupation and bereft of company of their loved ones. Unfortunately today, so what is happening now? So the author is doing the comparison that earlier that was a problem with the old age, now is the problem of everybody. An unhealthy solitude is loneliness, SOL root hai yahan par, prevails among numerous children, teenagers and adults too. So pay attention to transition. Subsequently, there is an alarming increase in the demand for mental health therapy practitioners. So now you can see there's a new point ki now there is a demand of mental health practitioners, right? And why this particular passage is explaining. So in case the question comes, we can revisit this particular passage, and where the author is saying that, are we going to let this happen to us? And earlier only old people had experienced loneliness, but since people are being heavily dependent on technology, the traits are being seen in children, it's being seen in teenagers and in adults too. So the necessity of engaging psychologists in school. So necessity of engaging psychologists. The passage is saying that now you have psychologists in school, right? And college is evidently on the rise. So this is talking about a trend that is emerging, right? The psychologists are required to identify and address the learning and behavioral need of students who approach them for guidance. Moreover, if required, the professionals are expected to help in strengthening their emotional, social and academic skills. So how are these psychologists helping? अगर आपके पास question आ जाए कि out of the following options, pick those options where the psychologists are helping the students in the school, you can revisit this particular paragraph and get your answer, right? So regardless how alarming the situation might be, it's never too late. If people revert to earlier trend of shopping offline, going for nature walks, playing outdoor games and catching up with friends in their homes or cafes more frequently, they can keep their heads firmly well above the ocean of loneliness. So here the author is giving a solution कि अभी भी late नहीं हुआ है, ये सारे measures या ये सारे remedies लेकर you can make things better for yourself. So is the passage clear? It starts with the story of Saru, the fellow who used technology to get reunited with his mother, and then it comes down to this particular discussion that how a lot of use of technology is pushing people to a place of loneliness, and later schools are hiring psychologists to help the children, and how are they helping, and what is the author suggesting to overcome this particular problem, right? So let's see the questions now. From the passage, it is evident that Saru's desire to find his mother ended up being a distant dream. No, opposite. Usko to apni mummy mil gayi thi. So this cannot be the answer. Inspired him to use Google satellite. This is correct till here. Feature intermittently. Intermittently nahi. Usne to jab tak mummy nahi mili feature use kiya. So this is a partially correct answer, but it is not totally correct. Waned as time went by. No. He actually met the mother. So ABC gets eliminated. What is the answer choice? Did not slacken till he succeeded. He continued trying and finally he met his mother, right? Simple question, right? Can you see how the answer choices are so easy to eliminate until and unless you get into the trap for choice B. Now let's see the second question. In the sentence, these very apps have snatched away the joys of long nature walks. वो आपने ऐसे हिंदी में सुना, धीरे से बोलो दीवारों के भी कान होते हैं, तो दीवारों के कान तो नहीं होते ना. This is personification, right? Again, figure of speech which we'll be discussing in detail. So what should be the correct answer? C. Metamorphized, no. Satirized, no. Right? So we will pick C as the right answer. Let's see the next question. From the passage, one can conclude it is impossible for people to reduce the usage of apps. Okay. There is impossible तो नहीं है, क्योंकि ऑथर ने एंड में कहा है कि ये सारे रेमेडी मेजर्स आप ले सकते हो, तो इम्पॉसिबल एक्सट्रीम हो जाएगा, इसको एलिमिनेट कर देते हैं. There is a direct correlation between loneliness and excessive usage of social media apps. Definitely रख सकते हैं. The usage of technologies as essential for mental health as food and water for physical health. तो इसको भी रख सकते हैं. All senior citizens are lonely because they are non-tech savvy. तो ये भी एलिमिनेट हो गया. अब आपको क्या करना है, आपको देखना है कि between B and C which is a better answer, right? So if you have this urge to keep B, don't outrightly eliminate it. Just see that, okay, between B and C, definitely C is better reasoned, a better answer. So we'll go for choice C, right? Let's see the next question. From the passage, it can be inferred that presently in many educational institutions, the number of teachers who pass the buck to psychologists is on rise. So pass the buck to nahi ho raha. Yes, there is a rise of having psychologists in the school, but pass the buck makes the answer choice go wrong. Special emphasis is being laid on the mental and emotional health of the students. हाँ, अगर psychologist रख रहे हैं तो yes, we can keep it. The usage of educational apps is being discouraged significantly. Direct mention नहीं है. All the students feel the need to be counseled by psychologists. सारे students के बारे में हम नहीं कह सकते. So what would be the correct answer? B for this question, right? So can you see how simple the questions are? Let's see the next one. In the concluding paragraph of the given passage, the writer's tone can be described. So in the last paragraph, the author is giving possible solution. He is saying that, see, if you go shopping offline, you meet your friends, then you'll be able to overcome, the ocean of loneliness. So he's being optimistic, right? We can keep this. Laudatory comes from the word laudation, means appreciating. No. Apologetic नहीं है. Despairing तो hopeless है, वो तो नहीं है, क्योंकि he's saying that you can do these things to overcome loneliness, right? So that is it. That brings us to the end of the discussion. So you have seen an actual previous year passage. Now you know that what are the little details that you need to take care of while solving reading comprehensions. We'll have more sessions for RCs where we'll be building on strategies, where we'll be focusing on question solving, right? So see you in the upcoming sessions. Keep learning, keep working very hard, and don't forget consistency is the key. Take care. All the best.